This PRS is in for a fret job. I don't often take on repairs, but I thought this would be interesting. It doesn't need to be refretted, although the client thought that might be the case. It's very standard. The frets have got dents in them up to about here, and we're just going to do a standard fret dressing and go from there. Okay, to start with, strings come off. Fairly elementary. I wouldn't ever suggest just taking some wire snippers to the string while it's under tension. The bridge snaps back and can dent finish, etc. But also it can damage tuners, specifically older geared tuners. But you don't want to get into bad habits, do you? Alright, seeing as we're going to be replacing the strings as well, we get rid of these. For starters, you've just taken the tension off the neck, so it won't be flat, and there was no guarantee that it was perfectly straight before that point. So you do need to check what the neck relief is like, and more than likely adjust it. There we go, tiny little tweak, and this is now perfectly flat. Now, the top of the frets need to be blacked out with permanent marker, taking care not to get any on the fretboard. Now that the frets are black, I get out my levelling file. This is just a wooden handle that I've made and abused over the years, and it's got a file glued inside. The file has to be perfectly flat. Makes sense, but you have to say these things. And you've also got to make sure that the file isn't going to touch any part of the pickup. Not that it should. You need to be careful. And then it's a case of supporting the neck properly. The last thing you want to do is put too much pressure in the middle and take more out that way. There are jigs, bench jigs, that will hold the neck in the same position it's in while it's got strings on. And effectively it's got a bolt that comes up through the bench at 4-inch intervals with a soft something on the end, and that you wind up until it holds the neck in place. Everything's clamped down. I wanted to make myself one of these things, and I will one day when I have a much bigger workshop. But for now, just be aware of where you're pushing. And you also need to be aware of the nut. In fact, best practice states protect your nut with 3 or 4 layers of masking tape. The last thing you want to do is knock that out or damage it in any way. Now, I've not masked the board, and the reason for that is plain. There's no way that I could damage the board using the file, because it's being held flat on the frets. And now it's easier to get rid of any and all nickel silver filings. Okay. That masking tape on the nut is now no longer needed. The next stage, after you just double check that you are actually perfectly flat now, the last thing you want is to do all your profiling and then realise that you haven't flattened the board. Now you mask the fretboard. There are little metal jigs available to do this for you, but to be honest, I think that they're a waste of time a lot of the time. They're never precisely the right fit for the fret, or rarely are at least, and that causes problems in the profiling part of this job. Now I'm using a small hand file, little flat hand file, and I have slightly rounded over and polished the sides so that it's not going to dig in to the fretboard, or obviously the masking on the fretboard, too much. It does a little bit, but once it's dug in you replace the masking tape and carry on going. I find these, you have much more control over the profile that you get than you do with the standard files that you get that have a concave filing surface. These come in various sizes, but effectively you go boom, straight over, and you've got no choice as to the final curve that you get, and it's very easy to, because you can't see, it's very easy to go too far and ruin your fret and make it too low, and you have to go back and re-level or re-fret, which is even worse. Now with this one, we've obviously put black marker on each fret, and I'm taking it away on the edges to get the profile I want, and making sure that I leave a regular flat line that is the same width on every fret, down every fret. Therefore I know that the intonation is going to be correct on each fret. Now that I've profiled the frets correctly, I'm taking off the old masking tape where it's been ripped and damaged by the file, It's not every piece, but it is important to do this. And it's not a waste of time. You do not want to damage the instrument. The next phase, once you have your frets profiled and roughly where you want to be, you need to start the polishing process. This is the middle stage. This is a bit of profiling and a bit of polishing all in one. And you take some 400 grit wet and dry paper, leave it dry, and just roll it around your finger. And this way your finger is going to go in between each fret. If you're careful and don't spend too much time in any one place, you are profiling the frets and just normalizing, evening out what you've done beforehand with your file, and you're also getting rid of the file's scratches.